What's up, guys? Welcome to another podcast episode, and we are so excited here.
Yes, sir.
Pedro and I were praying right before we started because we really believe that God has something to do. So we want to hear his voice, and we want you to hear his voice. So, and if you've been blessed by our podcast, do us a big favor here already, okay? Click the like button. If you're not subscribed yet, you're more than welcome to do that right now so that you always get the notification on when we release a new one. And we only do an English one or one in English.
Very rarely.
Very rarely. Like once a month. We're shooting for once a month. So whenever you get the notification and you see that it's in English, guess what?
Open it up.
Open it up. Open it up. And today we have Pedro here with us. We're excited.
Thank you, sir.
It's going to be pretty much like an interview, which is so exciting.
Don't ask me the hard questions.
I only typed down hard questions. So I knew he was coming. I was like, I got to trick this guy. But we're excited. We really are, because we're talking about something that relates to all of us.
Yeah.
All of us, every single one of us. Pedro inspires me so much, and you're going to see why. And I mean this. I really mean this.
You inspire me too.
Because a lot of times we do things like this. Like you see some people talking in a podcast or preaching a message, and you automatically think, oh, they're pastors, or they're working at the church or things like that. And Pedro is someone who has his full-time job, right? Yet he serves so much. And so Pedro, I wanted to see a little bit more. I want everyone to know a little bit more of who you are. Definitely. And why it is that you do what you do. So first thing, what is your, how do you see yourself?
Oh God, how do I see myself?
I told you I had some hard questions today.
My. How do I see myself? I see myself as a bright young man. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just a 24-year-old kid trying to do what I think God has called me to do and live life in the process.
That's good.
Just kind of going with the flow with that. I'm really bad at that. People always say like, oh, where do you see yourself in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Man, I don't know where I see myself tomorrow. But if I'm right here right now, then this is what God wants me to do right now. So let's go with it.
I actually love that. I don't know if you saw the Bible verse of the day.
I don't know.
It's Jesus saying, you don't worry about tomorrow. Today has its worries.
Yeah, exactly.
I read a book once called Courage and Calling. And the third of the book, the guy's just talking about daily Jesus has callings for you.
Yeah.
Today.
What's your purpose, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like people listening to this podcast right now, there you go. There's your calling for you to listen to this conversation, and Jesus is going to speak to you. Like, what are you going to take out of it? For our conversation here, Jesus meant for us to have this. This is important, right? So I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Also, my personality is like that. Like I change, like in 6 months, I'm going to like completely different things. I'm going to be doing different things. Like I've always had phases of stuff, right? But stuff like I'm actually really passionate about. Yeah. So I even struggle with that sometimes of like, man, what is God calling me for if it's long term, because I keep switching, right? So I can definitely relate in that area too. But
one thing I've seen consistent in your life is your involvement in what matters most.
Yeah.
So I remember when I got here, you're finishing up high school, right? Yeah. And yet you were so involved, right? And you had your sports, you had your job, you had your car, you had a girlfriend, everything, and yet you were so involved.
Yeah.
And then college came. And you went to really good school, which demanded a lot from you. Yeah. And then you were working.
And church it even more.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And then we started a young adult group here. And you were involved in those two ministries while still going to school. And how do you balance that?
Busy times. Yeah.
Very busy times. And you love being in nature.
I do.
And you've never stopped doing any of those things that you love the most.
No, that's my time with God.
There you go. Yeah. And now, where are you at in life?
Yeah, so now I'm working full time at an artificial intelligence company. So getting into the tech space. I flip-flopped in a lot of different areas, but always in the kind of realm of management, project management specific. So I'm working full time, working remote, which... Thank you, COVID, right? But yeah, it seems like the whole world has kind of transitioned to this remote environment, whatever that means, right? So in one sense, like I'm less connected with a lot of people, but in the other sense, I'm more connected to a lot of people because now like physical distance isn't a boundary, right? So we get to actually interact with more people from different countries. So that's been like a blessing in disguise, I think, of working remotely. But yeah, work full-time remote, and then all the stuff that we do here on the side. Yeah.
And I love that you say on the side, but why is this important? Like, why do you make time for this? Like at a young age, a lot of people just think, oh, I just got to live my life now.
Yeah.
I'll focus on, those deep questions. What is my purpose? What is my calling?
Yeah.
Later. Now I'm just going to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that statement or?
No, I mean, I feel like I'm living my life the most right now. Right. And I think that is living life. And I think it's really dangerous when you're say hey, I'm like you're compartmentalizing things, right? Like, hey, I'm living life now and then I'm getting responsible later. And then I'm getting stable later. Like, no, like in all areas of my life, faith or not faith, like I'm trying to both enjoy life as much as I can right now. I'm trying to be as stable as I can right now. And I'm trying to be as responsible as I can right now. Right. But all understanding that hey, I'm 24. So what that fund's going to look like, what that stability is going to look like, what that responsibility is going to look like, all comes in different forms. But they're all present now. And I think when we bring that spiritually, it gets really dangerous, right? Because if fun looks like, hey, I'm just going to sin as much as I can right now, because then I'll convert later, God's going to forgive me, things will be okay. That becomes very dangerous because you probably won't if you're doing that now, right? The same way if hey, if I'm really reckless financially right now, if I'm splurging on my money, when I'm 30, it's going to be harder for me to get to a financially mature, stable place, right? So I think of it in the same way spiritually of hey, if I'm splurging spiritually right now, by the time I'm older, it's not going to be oh, just start and it's going to be all new. No, you're going to have all that baggage, right? So I think spiritually, it's very important to kind of distinguish that. But focusing more on the serving aspect that you were talking about, man, it's what I love to do. And I think that's why it's so easy to do, despite how many long hours it is, how hard it is, how heavy it is. Man, I love it, right? And I love it because I think we hear serving, we automatically think sacrifice, hardship, all these things, right? And that's part of it.
Right.
But it's also man, I'm having fun doing these things with people that believe the same things that I do, that are my closest friends, and we're doing it together for a higher purpose, right? So how can you not enjoy it?
I don't know if I think you did, because you even you agreed in my prayer here how we were Lord, if one person gets it.
Exactly.
If one person flips a switch in their mind and they change how they're thinking and they find you, they find a higher calling, a greater purpose, they find why they're alive, they find Jesus through this, it's worth it. Right. And I feel like that's your motto. It's just.
We were talking about that this Tuesday in my small group, right? So we have our small group every Tuesday, and we were talking about kind of the age that we're in, right? We're in the influencer age, right? And how so many times we don't do things because of jealousy and envy. And that a lot of times manifests itself in our influence. Man, I don't have 50,000 followers, right? If I post something on my social media, 5 people are going to see it, right? Or man, I go to a really small school. I have 3 really close friends, right? I don't have this influence of 100 people. And a lot of times we shy away from doing what we think is God's work because we're man, I'm not reaching 100,000 people like that guy's reaching, right? But it's if God gave you the group of friends that you have, he gave you that for a reason, right? If God put you in the family that you're in, he put you in that family for a reason. If God put you in the church, in the community, and the job that you have, there's someone there, right? There's a purpose behind it. And I think we focus so hard on the numbers, on the amount of people, on the amount of reach. We're man, Jesus spent the most of his time with 12 people, right? And he changed those people's lives the most at first. And I think we need to think like that of hey, whatever I have, God gave me for a reason, right? And whatever I don't have, he also didn't give me for a reason, right? And being okay with that and not letting that hold our influence, right? So right now our small group's 25 people, right? It's a big small group. We've had for a long time, we're doing small group with 3 people, with 4 people, right? And it's hey, this is where God wants us now. Let's invest in these 4 people. If God wants 20 people, we'll invest in those 20 people.
A memory came up on Facebook earlier today. I didn't send it to you, but I thought of you right away. When we were doing everything remotely.
Yes, I took a screenshot to send you. Yeah, I saw it this morning on my phone. Yeah, and not on Facebook, on my on my photo album.
Yeah, and
us in the coffee shop filming. There was 5 phones set up. Yeah.
And then I was looking through some of our Zoom calls.
Oh my God.
And I remember your small group had 4 people.
Oh yeah. No, I've done small group with 1 person before.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I love that because you still had the same motivation.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not gonna lie, it dwindles sometimes in days like that, but yeah.
but because one person matters. I mean, we love songs like Reckless Love. Why? Because he leaves the 99 for one.
Would we leave 99 for one?
Right. We got to think about that. Yeah. Like sometimes we go, no, I'd rather have 99 likes.
More people.
Right. 99 views instead of course, we're exaggerating here, but you know, sometimes I read a quote today from a guy talking about how a lot of times we want more influence than we want intimacy, right? Because of the social media world we live in. I feel like we're all falling for that in a sense, right? We're more concerned with being an influencer than we are having intimacy with the Lord.
But think about it. Like if you had 99 people, would you be able to devote enough time to those 99 like you could to 5, right? Nothing wrong with having a huge influence, right? If anything, that's the goal. Like I want our church to grow so that more people can hear the gospel. But at the same time, it's like, man, I know that if I'm trying to devote myself to 100 people, I'm going to do a really crappy job at it compared to if I had 5 people that I can really devote time to.
Yeah. I joke around with our small groups, right? Hey, if we're over 12 people, we got to split, man.
Yeah.
If the Lord of the universe chose 12 disciples, I'm not
magic number.
I'm not taking 13. Yeah. But we're joking, but it's also serious.
Yeah.
You know, that was his small group. And even John, James, and Peter, they believed they were the closest ones to Jesus.
I think everyone can relate with that, right? Like in high school, or at least I think most people, it's when you try to have the most friends.
Yeah.
Right? And I can guarantee you the time where you've had the most friends is the time that you've felt the loneliest or had the least amount of real friends, right? You try to be friends with everyone and try to devote time with everyone. You can't. And it's like that superficialness where where you have 5 people, like, you know, those 5 people, right? And I think that's why kind of the backbone of everything that you kind of mentioned before was always small groups of knowing that like, hey, okay, cool. We can preach on stage on a Sunday. We can do whatever. But that's a time where I am tangibly making a difference in someone's life one-on-one, not just giving them a message that can apply to a bunch of people, but like, hey, I can sit down with Matt, and help him in this area. You know?
Yeah. And I feel like you do this so well. How do you manage that? Because you work 40 hours a week and you are
a little more sometimes.
A little more sometimes. You mentioned your day off last week.
Yeah.
You got a call. Full day of work, you know. And yet you're constantly meeting with people. Yeah. You're constantly going to coffee shops. You're constantly going for lunch, going for, dinner and things like that. How do you do that? And why do you do it?
Yeah, 2 different questions. I think the why answers the how. The why is because, let's start simpler. What I know I most need and wish to have is people that will pour into my life. Like people that actually care about me, right? Not that cares that like I'm another butt in a seat, but cares that like, hey, how are you doing spiritually, right? Like, how is life for you right now? And if I want that, I'm sure more people want that, right? And if I know how important it is to me, I know it's going to be that way to other people. And if other people don't have that, I want to be able to be that person for someone else. Right? So the why is because, man, there's the need. God calls us to do it, right? That's the up there answer. But it's like, man, God calls us to love one another. Yeah. I can't say that like, hey, if I walk past you 20 times on a Sunday morning, I love you. Right. If I never stop and ask about you, right? If I I take that very seriously. Like I struggle to say like, I love you, right? Like my girlfriend jokes about it all the time. Like, man, it was hard the first time I said, I love you, because I take that very seriously, right? Yeah. I don't call someone bro unless like, because if I'm calling you a brother, like that's deep, you know? Yeah. So I struggle with that to begin with. But if I do love someone, as Christ calls us to love someone, and the way that he calls us to love someone is, hey, love your neighbor like you love yourself. Right. Do to them like you want. And I know what I want done to me, so I'm going to do that to other people. Nice. So that's the why. The how is, man, that's the prioritizing part, right? For me, it was never like the number one thing was always church. And I hate using that word church because it means like, it sounds like, right, just like a thing you attend. But I never wanted what I would do to get in the way of what I needed to do, felt like I needed to do in church. Okay. So if it's like, hey, right now in life, all I'm going is on church on Sunday morning, my extracurriculars would involve around that. If it was like, hey, now you need 4 nights a week, my extracurriculars would revolve around that.
Okay.
So it was never, I would take stuff and then try to fit church around it. It's, hey, I already have this to begin with. Now let's see what I can fit in. And I think that's a lot easier when you start from that place.
Yeah. You organize yourself around your priorities.
100%. Yeah. And we all do that. What we do is that we trick ourselves into what our priorities are, right? Like we say like, hey, my priority is going to the gym, but we stay up all night, wake up super late. We eat junk food throughout the whole day. And then we don't end up going to the gym. And we're like, man, why didn't I go to the gym? That's my priority, right? But it's not. Your priority is shown through your actions, right? So if my priority is going to church Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, how I show that means I'm not going to take a job where I work Tuesday, Sunday, and Thursday, right? Or whatever the days I said. So your priority is shown through how you prioritize something, right? You know, I prioritize our friendship by like, hey, do I make an effort to do this? Do we go out on these days? Do we talk? Do we text? That's how, so priorities are revolved around that. I think we just do a really good job of tricking ourselves into what our priorities are.
Well, I remember, I'm terrible with quoting people, you know, but whoever it is, someone knows, make sure you comment. I won't even try. But a quote that helped me a lot during busy times of college and ministry and things like that was, show me your schedule and I'll show you who your God is.
There you go.
Oh, dude, that hit hard.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking about, like, I had 3 jobs while going to college.
That's a lot.
And I was helping out at a youth ministry at my church.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't, this is so important to me.
Yeah.
Like, this is my number one thing. Like, this is what, he is everything to me. What you just said, I would schedule everything around that. I cannot work Friday nights. Oh, but my boss is going to be, dude,
sorry.
I'm sorry. You know, maybe that's not the place for me.
You don't have to take that job.
You do not. You do not. I mean, especially, sometimes, like, you're living with your parents, you know, and in a sense, you are taken care of financially. I'm not saying you should give up your job or anything like that. No, but you have to think about priority. We have to go back to a pure faith.
Yeah.
What do we believe God to be? Provider, right? We sing songs like He is Jireh, right? You are enough. It's beautiful that we sing that here on a Sunday.
Do you live it?
But do you apply that?
We've been talking about this for the last 2 weeks in my group because of the messages that we've been having.
Yeah.
But it's, man, we want a God of miracles, but we don't give Him the space to do miracles, right? It's called a leap of faith for a reason. You have to leap, right?
Yeah.
So we want God to do this crazy miracle, to change us, to provide, but we try to control everything, dictate what that miracle is. So you mentioned like a job, right? It's like, man, if God gives me the other job, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But are you going to leave your other job and have the faith that He's going to provide you with the other job? And listen, like, I know we're coming from somewhat of a privileged situation, right? Yeah. Like, oh, it's easy for you to say when you're not like living paycheck to paycheck, or when you don't know when your next meal is going to come. Yes, I get that. But I think in so many areas of our life, we don't give God the space to be that provider, to be that Jireh, to be that God that can do miracles where the situation's impossible, right? If He's a God of the impossible, we need to live in some impossible situations sometimes. But we live in this Western capitalist, we provide for ourselves, do everything for ourselves, and we don't give God the space to do those miracles.
Pedro, I haven't shared this with you yet, but so my wife has been out of a job for almost 5 months now.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that. We're seeing that. A couple of weeks ago, this random person, I've met this guy once in my life. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not trying to be nice. Once. I didn't even remember what his face looked like. Just donated something to us.
There you go.
I even thought, I was like, this must be a mistake. He doesn't know me like that. Like, he probably, it's another Matt, you know, that he meant to send this to, called him. He's like, oh, and it's a gift from God. And then I was like, I need to find who this person is. They messed up. It's for someone else. I need to find him. I got to make sure I don't, send it to my bank account because it's on an app.
Yeah.
Found him. He's like, you weren't supposed to find who it's coming from because you're supposed to think that it's from God.
Wow.
Right. And I was just like, do you know?
Yeah.
And so I
told him, he doesn't even know the situation.
He had no idea. So did you know that my wife has been searching for a new job? He's like, no, I had no idea. Right. So why did she even leave her job in the first place? Because we believe God was calling her to do it.
There you go.
We didn't have another job yet. We didn't have like the step that we're going to leap into. Yeah. No, we just thought God is leading us out of here into a new season. What's a new season? I don't know. but we're trusting his voice.
And that's so hard, right? That's stepping into I'm a project manager. My job is to literally make sure that like I know what the next 6 months is going to look like.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, if we believe in a God that is timeless, that already knows our tomorrow, why are we trying to control it, right? And that's with everything, man. I don't want you guys to think that's just like about a job. Like, why do you not tell God talk about God to your coworker that you know is an atheist, right? It's because you think he's going to judge you. It's because you think, man, he's not going to get it. Man, there's no faith for him. Man, it's going to look bad on me, right? But if God's the one telling you to do it, man, let God do it, right? It's not us. It's not us that are going to convince the person. It's God behind us. We just don't open the door for God to do those things, right? Like, take that leap.
This week in my small group, someone asked that question because one of the guys was talking about how, dude, at my job, I don't even care. I tell people all the time, I'll tell them about God because sometimes, he works in a hospital and sometimes people come in with like anxiety attacks and panic attacks and things like that, or in a very depressive mode. And he goes, Matt, honestly, if I feel like the Lord is telling me to say something to them, I say it. Yeah. I just connect them. Like, hey, find a local church, grab a Bible, start praying. He's telling them. And then another guy from the group was like, but do you not get afraid of getting in trouble? Yeah. How do we manage that? And he said, until I get in trouble, I won't stop. He's like, I haven't yet. Yeah. And I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. Dude, I've worked the corporate world. I've worked in an office. I've worked remote. Like, I get it. I've never been in a situation where haven't had opportunities to talk about God. And the times that I did, I was like shocked afterwards of like, man, I can't believe I'm having this conversation like in my office. Because if God put you where you are, it's for a reason. Right. So if you're working construction, there's someone there, or there's something through your life that he wants to use you for. And hey, if you get in trouble for doing God's will,
dude, isn't that an inspiration?
Kind of worth it, right? Like, yeah, respect laws, boundaries. Yes, of course. I'm not saying that kind of stuff. But man, if you just spread God's love to someone and you got in trouble for it, like, hey,
it will give you a sense of like, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, right. We would see the disciples talking like that all the time, right? Like how blessed it was to suffer for God. And I think we miss that. And that can come in a lot of different ways. It can come in the way of like, man, I'm going to talk to my atheist friend and our friendship's going to get awkward, right? That's part of a consequence, right? Yeah. It's not always that like God's going to call you to do something that's going to be all dandy and roses, right? Like you can probably think of millions of examples of like people you've talked to God about and nothing ever happened, right? Yeah. But that's also part of God's plan was, hey, maybe it was more for you than for the person, right? Yes. Like there's so much there that we don't know behind it. And this, I don't know, the same way that has happened, I've had situations where like years later, someone's like, hey, I remember something from 5 years ago. They said like, plant the seed, right?
That imagery has been in my mind so much. Like the watering. Yeah. Watering, because sometimes someone heard about Jesus when they were growing up, walked out of the faith, spent their whole lives away, and now they're in their 20s and they don't even think about God, and they call themselves agnostics or whatever, just not a man of faith, not a spiritual guy at all, right? But the seed is in there. So what does God call us to do a lot of times? Water it. Yeah. Just water it. Water it. Yeah. But I don't see anything coming out of it, man. I don't see how it's going to happen. We're not called to see it happening sometimes. Sometimes we're called to just water. And God is going to make it give its fruit.
And the best way that you can do that is just living out what the Bible calls you to live.
Nice.
It's not like you're preaching every time you talk with someone. If anything, you're probably doing more damage if you do that. Yeah. Imagine if like every time you met with your atheist friend, you're like, hey, let me give you a Bible verse today, right? Like probably not the way to do it. Right. You have like stuff all over your computer, right? Like I would always, just part of who I am, for me, my number one identifier is my relationship with Christ. Okay. So that's going to show in how I treat people and how I forgive people and how I talk with people. But it's also going to be like, I will always find a way to slip in church in any conversation, right? Being like, oh man, yeah, I got home last night for my Bible study, blah, blah, blah. And someone's like, oh, so now they know, right? Why? Because it opens the door to have that conversation, right? And I think especially our like age Christians, we've been plagued with that because we came from like the tacky, like Jesus loves you, like shirt era, right? And like the hats with like a million crosses and that kind of stuff. One of my favorite companies, and I say you even have some stickers above them. They purposely make their stuff super ambiguous and almost like confusing because they want someone to ask you about it so you can have the conversation.
Nice.
Right? So like, yeah, maybe someone's not going to look at me and be like, that person's a Christian, but they're going to look at me and be like, there's something different about that guy, right? Like, why are you so happy in the midst of everything that's going on? Yeah. Why are you so forgiving to that guy who just did all that? And that opens a door for me to have a conversation. So yeah, it's not you screaming Jesus loves you all the time, but it's living that love, and people will see that through you.
Nice. I see that you care a lot about people. You show that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's not necessarily through a Bible verse. It's not saying, "Oh, can I?"
People don't need your Bible verses all the time.
Right.
Sometimes people need a hug. Sometimes people need an ear to listen. Sometimes people need a shoulder to cry on, a hand to pick them up.
Nice.
Bible verses can come later, right? Jesus did a lot of miracles before saying like, hey, I'm God, give your life to me. Yeah. No, he would go out, he would heal, he would help people walk, he would cure their eyes, he would give them food. And then he would say, hey, now come and follow me.
Yeah.
Right?
The lady caught in adultery. Yeah. Right? He calmed the situation around. He saved her life, her bodily life, right? First, made sure she was safe. And then he said, I forgive you. Go and sin no more.
And here's the issue. We try to tell people, hey, come and follow, and then let the miracles come. No, be that person be that blessing in someone's life before, and then let them see like, hey, the reason behind that is because of what he believes. Don't tell people what you believe in and go do stuff. Yeah,
that's awesome. Last thing that I wanted to ask you. This has been in my mind so much, and every person I get a chance to talk about this, I take it. War in the Ukraine and Russia. Hard stuff to go through, and just see. I follow a couple of pastors that are involved in rescuing people, taking people out of there and bringing to Brazil and in U.S., right? Yeah. And so they update us often, but there's always this. Every time there's wars and rumors of war, right? We think of Matthew. We think of, you know, what Jesus said through the gospel. Yeah. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, right? And we tend to think, is he returning? Yeah. Is he coming back? And how does that play a role in your life and you focusing on, you know, what matters most, or how do you go about your days? Like, do you ever think about that? Do you link it to the end of times? Do you live like Jesus coming back? Yeah. Like radical faith kind of a thing? Or how do you deal with times like these?
Hard question.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't think about it as much as I should.
Okay.
I'll explain that. Like in the midst of everything that's going on, I can't say I've gotten more radical in my faith.
Okay.
Why? Because I try to live my life as if, hey, this is the last chance. And to a bad, like when I was in college specifically, like I had really bad anxiety around that of like, hey, I met this guy for one night. This is my last impression I'm going to leave to this guy, right? Imagine if my last impression is we just got in a fight. We just got in an argument. Yeah. Man, imagine if I just fought with my girlfriend and I leave and this is the last, like I always carry that weight with me. So I always try to be like my last impression. Even my first impression might be my last impression. And I take that with a lot of things in my life spiritually. So I almost want to say in the midst of war, in the midst of all the craziness going on, spiritually, it hasn't changed much because I've already adapted that to kind of my day to day. Or else, like you said, I wouldn't be doing everything that I do now, right? I would have waited till later. Yeah. Now, I think it makes everything a lot more serious. I think there's a lot more people that are going to be thinking about certain things now. I think there's a lot of people that, are living maybe their last days. And as the world gets to this point, like, hey, who knows? Could be a World War III, could not be. Yeah. But we should already live our lives like that. Nice. We should already live our lives as if like, hey, this is the last time. Hey, this might be the last day someone walks into my small group. Hey, this might be the first and only conversation I'm going to have with someone. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, totally. I want to say totally it has, and I don't want that to sound bad, but I think it's important for us to live our lives like that. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. No, it doesn't sound bad because you mentioned how you already live like that. Yeah, with war or without war, you already live with your. This is my number one priority. Yeah, I live for this cause. Exactly. Right. I make time for it. You know, my schedule revolves around it. Yeah. Right. So. And I love that. I love that. So, and I think that's almost like
that's a recipe for someone who is maybe anxious about this, who's maybe freaking out about, is he coming back? What do I change? How do I deal with this? I think you were going to say something.
I do think it puts more pressure on us though, of like, hey, because more people are thinking about this now, because more people are going through this now, it's also our time to step up most, right? This is the time to not be quiet. This is the time to use your platforms. This is the time to be the blessing in someone's life, to be the instrument, to be the voice. So I think it's a bigger calling now. But I think the responsibility has always been the same. The responsibility for, like God said, go and make disciples. He didn't say when, how, where. No, it's just go. It's who you are. It's what you do, right? Now we just have that bigger weight on our shoulders for doing that.
And I love, and we can end with this. I love, that verse that you mentioned. It's Jesus' last words in recording in the book of Matthew, right? Go and make disciples. And the translation there, we translate it as like two verbs as like giving you a command, right? But it could also be translated as you go, as you live your life, make disciples, right? It's like, it's not two different things.
No matter where you are, no matter.
Exactly. No matter where I'm working at, no matter how many followers I have, no matter if I'm in a busy stage of life or in a more relaxed, no. As I'm going about my days, I'm making disciples. Right. That's the charge. And you're a great example of that.
I hope so. Thank you. Yeah. There's an example my dad always gives of a doctor that he's friends with, who's an amazing Christian, and he said, and he will talk about God during his like visits. And my dad was asking him like, hey, like you're a doctor at a very established hospital, like how do you do this, right? And he's like, listen, I'm a doctor, I'm a surgeon, whatever, but I am a Christian disguised as a doctor. Nice. Like being a doctor is the platform that God gave me. So therefore, I get to meet with people every single day. Therefore, I get to spread God's message every single day. And I think that's the issue. If you see yourself first as, I'm a carpenter, I'm a real estate, whatever you are, that's your first identity. And then it goes after that, right? That's why when you started the podcast of like, how do you see yourself? Like, I hate the whole like, hey, I'm Pedro, I'm a project manager, I'm 24, I work. Like, no. Like, see yourself as a Christian first. Why? Because everything that you will do, stuff will flow from that, right? And that will help you, one, to not lose opportunities, but two, to really live your calling, really live your purpose. Don't waste opportunities, right? And that'll help you prioritize around that. If I'm a Christian first, it means like, hey, I'm going to structure my life in a way that my faith with God isn't going to be hindered. And you can do it, right? Like I played 3 sports, was captain of some of them, had my internships, went to a hard college, today work at a multi-billion-dollar company. But like I'm probably busier than ever right now with my small group, with church, with discipling people, with meeting with people one-on-one. Why? Because God gave me the ability to do it. So hey, maybe your platform, you're not a doctor, but maybe you're in a family that's really struggling, right? You can be the voice in that family. Maybe you have a car and a lot of your friends don't have a car. I remember when I got my car, I used the amount of 3 a.m. conversations that I have had in my car because I was the only kid with a car. So I was like, hey, I'm going to give a ride, especially not to just my best friends, to people that I know need to hear something. Because for those 20 minutes, they have no way out, right? Use your platform. If it's your social media, use your social media. If it's the 4 friends you have, use those 4 friends. But use what you have.
Yes.
You have something. Everyone has something.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And hey, if this was a blessing to you, if this spoke to you, it can be a blessing to someone else as well, right? This could be your platform, where you're just going to send this video, you're going to send this audio to many people. And we don't do this, again, it's not because we want the views. It's not for that. It's because we never know who's going to be that one person that Jesus is using this to be I've left the 99 for you, for you. So God bless you. We'll see you next time. Let us know what you like the most here in a comment and hit the like button. We'll see you next time.